Thank you for tuning in, viewers. It's Matthew Hickson, owner of Gamers Glorified, current head esports coach for Kish College, and today I will be doing what I call Gamers Glorified versus the FGC, where I will be interviewing some local players who are currently active in the FGC, asking them questions, get to know their side as far as the FGC community, and just some fun, casual conversations. Just to bring some content while we are currently still going on through this COVID pandemic. So right now I'm just currently waiting on our first guest, who is currently active in the FGC. So that being said, wait until he comes on. It's been a minute since I've actually competed. I haven't done any online tournaments, just some lounges and stuff like that. I did one, which turned out pretty good. Just a couple months back, so. Uh-oh, looks like he's here. Blake, what's going on, man? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
All right, perfect.
Welcome, welcome. You are my first interview for my series that I'm doing is Gamers Glorified versus FGC, which is pretty much interviewing some local FGC players. You know, I'm asking a few questions. You know, there's some different content while we are currently still going through this pandemic. So, how was your holiday, man?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really nice, actually. I got to catch up with my mom. We had a really nice dinner and everything. I'm trying to get all the light out of the frame here.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Yeah, really nice dinner with my mom, a nice gift exchange and everything, and just, chilling out. Just making the most of it, you know what I mean? How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was good. I was in Florida for a week with the fam. Stayed at a beach house up in Florida. The high was like 60s, 70s, so it was nice. My daughters got what they wanted. I got what I wanted. It was nice. It was a good mental reset, man. I just sitting on the beach, listening to the ocean. It was perfect, you know.
That's
Then
the
come
way
back,
to do it, man.
and now it's snowing. Like, ugh.
Yeah, just in time for the snow, right? Just in time. So,
All right, Matt.
here we are.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you being my first interview. Let's go ahead and get this started here. So, my first question is: let all the viewers know what your current gamer tag is that you use in the fighting game community, and let us know if there is a story behind your current gamer tag.
Okay, yeah. So my current gamer tag is Lionheart. I've gone by other tags in the past, but that's the one that stuck the most. The story behind it, it's kind of like related to wrestling in a way. If anyone watched like WWE or WWF, I was a big fan of like Chris Jericho, and his name when he used to wrestle in ECW, I believe, was Lionheart, Chris Jericho. Yep. So I like the idea of wrestling, and they're like these larger than life characters and whatnot. And at the time, I was feeling wrestling a lot, so I was like, yeah, I'll go with a wrestling nickname. That sounds cool. So
That's awesome.
Lionheart was what I started with, and yeah, 2014, and it's kind of stuck. Like I said, I've had variations of it over the years, but for the most part, that's the one that I stuck with.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up, man. Usually once you pick one that kind of sticks with you, for the rest of your career lifespan when you know, in FGC and whatnot, especially, when you compete and people they won't necessarily know your real name, but they'll know your gamer tag and they'll be like, oh.
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
what's up, man. That's what's up. Now, when did you decide that you wanted to compete or, getting in the FGC as a whole?
So I had always like played, like fighting games in general have been a part of my life for quite some time, even as early as like 10, 11 years old. But as far as actually competing, it was around the time when Smash Brothers for like the Wii U and 3DS came out,
Okay.
and they had a weekly tournament. Actually, right before that, I ended up going to Combo Breaker to spectate because the game had just came out, and I was like curious like what competitive scene was like and everything. And I went to just go spectate that weekend, and I met a really cool guy, Terry, who runs like a weekly tournament up in Rogers Park, which was like right next to where I live. So I would roll up there just to kind of, test like what I got, my skill and everything. And I really fell in love with the competitive side of things. Like I found like a bunch of really cool guys and friends out of it. And one of the guys who turned out to be like a bracket demon, like we would always face each other in like grand finals or semifinals, and he would
Nice.
always kick my butt. And I was like, and you're really good. And he was like, I'm good. There's a bunch of guys at this other tournament that you should really check out. So he really introduced me to like the grander scope of weeklies and whatnot. Like before, I was familiar with the bigger monthly tournaments or like
Yeah.
regionals. But outside of like the more community based stuff, I started like really in my neighborhood, and then I grew out to some other spots as well.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. That's the local scene, man. That's where it all begins, man. That's where the community base starts. A lot of the stories I hear as far as how they got into it, as far as the FGC, is pretty much the same, just a different game. Mine was pretty much similar. It was Street Fighter. Um, that was probably one of the games that I was known for back in Florida, back in like the early '90s, mid 2000s, before like Marvel's Capcom 2 came out. But it started off
Yep.
from there, man. And before the scene got really big, some of the hangout spots were like your local gaming stores, like Electronic Boutique or Guerrilla Games or whatever it is in the area that usually would host those small local tournaments outside of like your friends getting together and stuff like that. So yeah, that's awesome, man.
Right.
That's awesome. So as far as the competitive side of it, how do you normally prepare for an upcoming tournament or major? Like, what's your usual routine? Like, do you have a set 1, 2, 3 that you need to do, or you just get up and go and just grind it out? Like, do you have a routine, or is it just pretty much go with the flow?
So it's changed over the years. Initially, when I was just playing Smash, there was a website called Smash Ladder because the actual game didn't have like a rank system or anything like that. So
Right.
I guess someone took it upon themselves to be like, all right, we'll create this website, and very similar to how it is with Street Fighter, they have like a bronze, silver, gold, et cetera, type of ranking system. And so before I would go to weeklies, there was like a weekly I went to every Wednesday where a lot of like the top Chicago talent would go to. I would just practice on Smash Ladder, maybe do like 10 matches a day, kind of record my progress, try to figure out what was working, what wasn't working, and just kind of go from there. Um, when I was getting like more involved with Smash, I would actually go to multiple weeklies throughout the week, and that they were like smaller ones I would do better, and I kind of like try out new things there. And then when I go bigger weekly, you know, that would be where I'm like, all right, let's see if I learned anything. You know what I
Right.
mean? That would be typically how I would train for a Smash. When it came to Street Fighter, a similar type of deal, just because yeah, it had a built-in like ranking system.
Right.
Uh, I didn't go to weeklies until maybe like 2018. So it was a
Oh, okay.
little later for Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And yeah, some events would host both Street Fighter and Smash. So if they had them both, I would enter both. Um, but yeah, typically just play online or do like a battle lounge or with you guys, of course. Just kind
Right.
of like just to train that way. Obviously, since the pandemic, there's been a lot more focus on like online tournaments, and
Right.
I know Capcom had ran a couple of these like online qualifiers, and unfortunately, I didn't have like the best experience with it. Like, kind of playing and whatnot seems like it should have been easy enough, but as far as
Right.
like the logistics, it's just been like tough to
It
get
was
enough games.
it was their first time doing it with the pandemic, so it's like trial and error. But I think over time they'll figure out the schematics behind it to get it where it should be. Because to be honest, I think online tournaments are going to be the way to go. Um, just because the variety, we've had more players internationally that we are able to actually view and watch, and they can build their name up too because of it internationally. Prior to that, unless you go to the major events that were streaming, you didn't really know where a lot of these players were coming from internationally. But now you see with Capcom Cup and the Capcom League, they got pretty much almost every single continent, competing in that. So I think even after the pandemic, whenever that's said and done and we get to our new normal and we're able to do like live events, I think the online scene is going to be pretty big, because by then I think we'll have it all figured out from there. So, but that's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
I agree.
That's awesome, man. Locals are good. Routines, absolutely. What I normally do when I enter my Street Fighter tournaments or any fighting game is, let's say, a combo breaker is usually in May, right? So the end of May, that the whole month of May, I pretty much isolate myself with any other game and just play Street Fighter. And then I start focusing on certain things each day, to build up to it. But the crazy part is, right after that, I don't play Street Fighter for like 2 months, dude. I've played Street Fighter
Yeah, yeah.
constantly for so long. Mentally, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I don't even want to hear the word. So I go to play something else for like a week or two because I've been playing it for so long constantly. So it's like, whew. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, are you currently sponsored? If so, how has that experience been? And if not, who would you want to be sponsored with given the opportunity?
So no, I never actually been sponsored by a team or anything like that. I know that became like a big focus in like 2015, 2016. A lot of players, especially like, whenever a new game comes out, people are trying
Right.
to get sponsored. And so yeah, I would always consider myself like a solid player, like, understanding like the fundamentals of the game and everything, but not good enough to be like a pro level. And so if I was going to be sponsored for something, it probably would be for like, maybe like graphics or something like that. It wouldn't be as a
Gotcha.
player.
Gotcha.
So,
Behind the
uh,
scenes type of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
support in a different way on a social media side or something like that. Um, as a joke, I do remember like throwing out the idea of I used to drink like a lot of Canada Dry, so um, I like
There we
out
go.
of yeah, just out of curiosity, I was like, maybe I'll shoot him an email, and I had like sent him an email with a couple of my tournament matches, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I performed well against so and so, and here's my listing and my rankings on like the weeklies and whatnot, and
Right.
of course, I never got a response out of it, but I was like, yeah, out of curiosity,
Yeah. You never
it's
know,
something that
man.
I think.
You never know. I mean, look where we're at now. Nobody would have thought that actually gaming would be where it is right now, where you can actually make a living doing that.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised, man. You never know. So, but that's good to know that you mentioned that, because prior to COVID, before all the pandemic stuff happened, I was actually in the process of sponsoring through some players locally through Gamers Glorified to get their brand going. So, which I'm still
Yeah.
gonna do. I just have to figure that out once everything is all situated with COVID and everything like that. But I have a list of players I reached out to who support my business and who are currently competing, and I was going to sponsor them locally just to get their name out and get recognition, because usually that's how you get recognition. If you're sponsored by somebody, other sponsored companies will
Yeah.
be, well, who's this player, and that was going to be that's my goal for the players, is I can sponsor you from a local standpoint just so you can be seen. And then if somebody comes to you like Red Bull or another company that wants to reach out and say, hey, we're interested in sponsoring you, by all means, go for it. I've done my job to get you, out there in recognition. So just keep that in mind. Once the pandemic and everything clears out. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
so as far as fighting games, what would you say your weaknesses and what would you say your strengths are?
That's a good question. It's something that I've actively tried to work on, but generally speaking, I'm more of like a defensive player. Like, I like to play this more like slow, methodical gameplay and like try to bait things out.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a lot of games, at least like recent games, have a bigger focus on like offensive play. So that is something that I've tried to focus on a little more and work on, but old habits die hard. It's kind of like I've always been more of a defensive guy, so maybe I'll have it in spurts where I'll kind of bust out and try to do something a little different, but that's
Mhm.
always been like and then yeah, my strength I would say is kind of like I said, just in a similar way, like certain game styles or gameplay styles can work against opponents. So people who are, super aggro might not work well against like a more defensive play style like I have. And I've I've won many of matches just kind of like taking it slow and trying to bait things out and
Yeah.
doing it that way. But yeah, it's always best to be well rounded if you can be.
It is.
So
It
that's
is.
something
And that takes a lot of discipline to be well grounded. Usually you gear towards one style than the other. Like for me, for example, I'm a totally aggressive player. Um, I like to rush down, as you know. So with me, the longer the match the longer the match goes on, the lesser the chances of me winning. So, if there's 99 seconds on the clock, on the time, and by the end of the match, there's 80, 70, 60, I'm pretty sure I won that match. But once the time gets down to like 40 seconds, 30 seconds, when I have to like think and make a decision at the last moment, that's when it's kind of like, ooh, you know, uh, you might have me then. So just because of the character and the style of play.
yeah.
You know, for those who are listening, they just pretty much know my weakness pretty much. The longer the match goes on, the better the
Yeah.
chances of you winning. So that's why me and you collide a lot, especially when you play Honda. Um,
Mm.
'Cause he's more of that slow, methodical, and he hurts too, man. So it's like,
Big punishes for sure. Yeah, he
absolutely.
definitely thrives on like waiting and just baiting stuff out. So that's why I've really stuck with him over. I would have never expected in a million years to be playing Honda, but
Right.
honestly, he just, you know.
He just matches well with you, man. So good stuff. So what would you say, what fighting game are you known for best? I know you mentioned you play Street Fighter, Smash. Me, I'm very diverse. I play Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Smash, Marvel, but like which fighting game are you known for? Like when Lionheart comes up on the screen or they see Blake, they're like, okay, what game do your peers know you for best?
It would definitely be Smash. Just like the series in general, but I would say specifically Smash for Wii U, Smash 4. that was really where I kind of made a name for myself. I mean, like I never became like a ranked player on like they had like power ranking for Chicago, and I never
Right,
really
right.
made like power rankings. But I would consider myself like a decent threat in bracket for sure. So I was definitely known as like a character specialist,
Okay.
and I used kind of like more characters, especially early on in my career. Towards the end, I kind of full all their characters, but definitely known for Smash, you know. And then after maybe 2017, when I picked up Street Fighter Five, I started to like diversify a bit more, playing some other games like Tekken every now and then. I picked up Dragon Ball Fighters for a little bit,
Right.
so I've tried to be a little bit more diverse later on in my career. But early on, definitely known like that 2014 to like 2017 run was like strictly just Smash.
Nice, nice. Mine I would say would probably be Street Fighter right now. Back in the day when I was living in Florida before I moved up here to Illinois, that's where my FGC roots are in Florida. Um, I was pretty much known for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Third Strike. Those were my two go-getters. I dilly dabbled in Tekken a little bit. I wasn't really a threat. I was more of like I was good for my juggles because Tekken wasn't really known for juggles back then. Um, like it wasn't preempted into the command list with 12 different juggle sample combos. So I was known for that back then. But that's good, man. That's good. Definitely good to diversify your portfolio, especially nowadays. There's so many platforms, so many games, so many tournaments. You don't want to limit yourself, especially prize pool wise, to a certain game when there's a plethora of fighting games out there now with prize fights that are like endless. Definitely good, man. Definitely good. Um, what would you say annoys you the most in the fighting game community?
So for the most part, I'm a pretty like easygoing guy. Most stuff doesn't really like get my goat, but I will say, anytime a new character comes out, and this is just across any game, there's always like the day one or the week one tier list, and can be a little irritating,
Yeah.
admittedly. I'm like every jabroni who's like, played 10 minutes with the character is like, oh, I think this character is top tier. He's got A, B, and C.
Right.
Or he's cheap because I can't block this. You know what I mean? And that in particular, I've seen way too much of that now.
Yeah.
Especially on sites like Event Hub, where it
Right.
just hey, here's the 74th best player in Puerto Rico. Here's his tier list, or here's what he thinks. I don't really care. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
outside of that, though, most of it is pretty cool. I don't really mind. I like, having conversations like this in general and just kind of talking about characters and, how they might
Absolutely.
do in the meta. But as far as trying to place a character hour one, day one, it's like, let's see how they do in tournament first. You know what I mean? Like, give it a little time to breathe, and then we can have that conversation.
Gotcha. All right. What do you like the most about the FGC?
The most would definitely be the community and just like the people that I met, honestly. We're all coming together for a common reason, and it's because we like the games that we're playing and whatnot. And, people that I met, like just kind of sitting with them, we'll play some games and then we'll kind of come off that and chit chat for a little bit. And, most people turn out to be like really cool. And I've met a lot of like really cool people through like Smash scene, Street Fighter scene, just friends of friends, you know what I mean? Like that's really the biggest thing, and that's really what's kept me in the FGC is just like the community itself.
Yeah.
Things like that, what you're doing, or like setting up time for interviews, just to kind of dive deeper into like different players and whatnot. I think that's all great. You know what I mean? Like that, community and like definitely the content, has kept me in the FGC. So definitely two of my favorite
Absolutely, man.
things about it.
Some of my best friends I met through the fighting game community. So it's like it's a community in itself. So even though we have the same interest in fighting games, outside of fighting games, we still communicate. It's still a community. It's still a family. Because I
Yeah.
haven't met you until the last combo breaker. You know, so, and then here we are right now interviewing, man. You know, we chop it up, man. Come to my events.
Yeah.
You know, we play Street Fighter. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like that one connection right there, you know, leads to other connections lifetime. So absolutely, man. So all right,
Yeah.
let's end this on a high note. Let's say let's name your top 3 fighting games of all time, and just a brief description of why.
Hmm. Yeah. This one's tricky. They might be like some obscure answers, but I do have a good reason for the games that I'm about to list.
All right.
So I would say, yeah, I've always been, like I said, I've always been like a Smash player. But the game in particular that like really like just changed, like I don't know, my perception of like how games were, presented and whatnot was Smash Brawl.
Okay.
And that the reason why was because I think like around 2007 or 8 when the game came out, they had a website. It was the Smash Dojo. And what was so cool about it was like every day they would just upload something to the site. So even if it wasn't like a character announcement, it'd be like a stage, a piece of music, like whatever. And at the time, I thought that was such a cool way to like present a game. Like nowadays it's pretty commonplace. Everyone has like a presentation or something.
Right.
They even build hype up to it. Hey, character reveal coming in, 2 months or 2 weeks or whatever, right? It's pretty commonplace. But back then, I don't know if there was too many games that were really doing that,
Yeah, I don't
and
think
on
so
top
either.
of that, yeah, and on top of that, Smash Brawl had like the crossover characters. That's really when they started doing like the crazy crossovers with like Sonic and Solid
Yeah,
Snake. So
that's
those
when
were
people
like,
really started paying attention.
yeah, that really got a lot of attention on the game. So that would be one. Number two would be Dragon Ball Budokai 3. And I know it's not a competitive fighting game,
Right.
but again, at the time, I was like really big into Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
I remember I had just bought, like the Dragon Ball GT DVD where like Goku turned into Super Saiyan 4, and I
It
think this
just
was
fit.
one of the first games. Yeah, yeah, this was like one of the first games that you could actually play as like a Super Saiyan 4.
Right.
So I was like, yo, this game is sick. It immediately caught my eye, and I remember just having like hours and hours with this game. So yeah, that has like a personal connection just because like I play the game a lot based on the show, based on
Yeah.
watching the show, being just a big fan of the anime. Um, and then the third game would be X-Men versus Street Fighter. And for a similar reason, because like back in the
Good choice.
90s, Street Fighter was like super hot.
Yep.
X-Men, the animated series, was super hot, and
Yep.
there was like a laundromat right around the corner from my house, and they had 2 games in there. One was Pac-Man, and the other was X-Men versus Street Fighter. And you could talk about complete polar opposites, as far as
Yeah.
presentation goes. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, just a game that like really stuck in my head. Obviously it kind of like started off the Versus series and the idea of like crossovers in general,
Yeah.
and it just really stuck out to me.
It's
So
crazy because when that game came out, this was back when, of course, like arcades was like at its like peak. It was plateau. It was like the hottest thing going on. There was a mall that I used to work at called the Avenues Mall in Jacksonville, Florida. And they had an arcade area. Like back then, most malls had the arcade area. And that used to be the spot for everything. Whenever you got scattered around in the mall, you'd be like, hey, meet at the arcade. Or, that was the meeting spot, period. Whatever your reason was, shopping, to play games, whatever. But they had introduced X-Men vs. Street Fighter. And when they told me they had it, I was like, what? So I went in there to play, and I used to work at a Big Easy Cajun fast food place. And then my buddy used to work at the arcade, and he would close up the shop, and we would,
okay,
I would close with him. And he used to tell me that game alone, before Marvel vs. Capcom came out, because when that came out, that just took over. But when X-Men vs. Street Fighter came out, I kid you not, that arcade alone was making more money than some of the food court places at the mall on a weekend. This thing would bring in like $3,000, $4,000 in quarters, bro. In quarters. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, he was literally showing me this, dude. He was like, bro, this is ridiculous. It got kind of annoying after the fact because he had to gather up all the quarters and, deposit it. But he was like, dude, we would make like $3 or $4 grand alone on that weekend just for that game. And that's how big of an impact it changed, like, the fighting game, like, community in period, with that crossover. So that's kudos for that. That's a really good choice. That wouldn't have been one of mine, but now that I think about it, I would have to at least put that in my top 10 easily.
It definitely came out at the right time. If we're
It
talking
did.
about just like Street Fighter being as popular as it was, X-Men, obviously the comics even before the show was like super hot. So
Exactly.
just the idea of that crossover, like, I don't know about you, but I could have never imagined something like that, at what, 8, 9 years old. So, to me, it was like, man, this is like super cool. And obviously the later crossover games, expanded on that. But that one being the first one was like,
Right.
just, groundbreaking at the time. Something so different, so new.
Awesome. Good choices, man. Well, that'll wrap it up for Gamers Glorified versus FGC interviews here, man. I appreciate you being my first interview. This was great. I got a couple others lined up, man. Can't wait to continue doing this series and reaching out to other FGC players and, getting their story and everything like that. So kudos to you, man. To be honest, I'll probably be hitting y'all up in the dojo so we can get some rounds in sometime this week, But if I don't hear from you, man, happy New Year's. Be safe. I'm looking forward to seeing what the FGC got going on next year, with 2020 and everything. But other than that, man, appreciate you. Have a good night. And I'll holler at you later, man.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, man.
Catch you later.
Peace.